recognize Dr. Dunn from the state of Florida for your 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. At our last hearing, I mentioned that the Chinese Communist Party seeks to sabotage freedom and democracy everywhere that it exists. And this mentality permeates throughout all of China's corporations as well, including those that operate in America. Despite American leadership in technology, we still do not have a comprehensive national privacy standard. Ironically, China does. However, China's privacy law, the Personal Information Protection Law, is in reality a national surveillance plan. Their law forces data sharing of every person and business in China with their government. Their law puts everyone's personal details at grave risk of government surveillance, and their law enables their government to individually target citizens for concentration camps, enslavement, and even death. It literally enables the Chinese Communist Party to target individuals who are potential source for organ transplantation. And the government knows whose genetic codes match whose, and they'll murder and steal organs at will. Thus, their law does not protect privacy at all. It gives all their data to the government. Most of all, it certainly doesn't keep China from hacking Americans' data. I want to remind my colleagues and my fellow Americans of some of the largest data breaches in the last decade, all of which left millions, hundreds of millions of Americans' data exposed. I refer you to the poster behind me, starting with Yahoo and going down to the final entry. There are U.S. government employees with security clearances, 20 million hacked. The American Data Privacy and Protection Act is both a privacy bill and a cybersecurity bill, and we need both. Protecting Americans from privacy invasion by domestic and foreign companies is important. And when we choose to share our data voluntarily with them, the security of our data in that company is also essential. Information that's not secure cannot be private. Without a comprehensive privacy standard, we can't stop big tech, the Communist Chinese Party, TikTok, or anyone else. When big tech and data brokers compile large troves of data, they are creating massive targets for malicious Chinese hackers and others. We cannot allow them to profit from our loss or inattention. Mr. Britton, thank you for your testimony. You've spent the last 2 decades working on global privacy and data protection policies. In hindsight, what are the key federal provisions you would recommend to protect Americans' data?
I think a strong federal law has to have all the rights that were first introduced in the Hugh Report that exist in GDPR and most global laws, the rights to access data, obtain a copy of data, to delete your data. I think that but that's not enough. That's the first step. We shouldn't put the burden of protecting privacy entirely on individuals. I think what really sets ADPPA apart are the obligations it puts on companies to protect individuals regardless of whether or not they exercise their rights. And those are obligations around mandatory assessments, obligations around corporate responsibility, and the duties that are included in ADPPA for companies.
Excellent. So there are certain guardrails we think should be put. We talk about it as minimization of data, but guardrails on what data is being allowed to be collected and by whom. Can you comment on that, Mr. Britton?
Yes, absolutely. I think data minimization is we view it as a good thing. It's not a new concept. As I mentioned, it's something that's existed since the Hugh Report. I think the key thing that ADPPA does is it forces data collection to be purposeful. It forces you to think about the data you're collecting and why you're collecting it and have a strategy. And as you mentioned, that's going to be so critical for minimizing the data we have, ensuring we have it for the right purposes, ensuring that we have proper access controls around that data. That all has to be documented and analyzed under ADPPA, and that's going to be some of the best protection we have against the threats that you identified.
Thank you very much. Mr. Codling, in your testimony, you mentioned that your experience with the FBI has informed you conducting cybersecurity assessments. What, in your opinion, is the most vital and vulnerable personal information the government collects on individuals?
I'm going to follow some of Mr. Britton's comments of data minimization, all day long. Then you have less material to defend. You have less material to be concerned about if you never collected it. Data thieves are completely going to go after children's data, particularly their financial data. And the fact that you have a blank slate when you're a young person, data thieves, nation states can come in and destroy your credit before you even realize that you needed credit.
The Equifax hack. Well, thank you very much to the entire panel for your time and testimony. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.